Here's our host, Tian Wei.
Hello and welcome to World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. The visit of the House Speaker of the United States, Nancy Pelosi, to Taiwan has not only created further pressure to the already troubling China-U.S. relations, but also has triggered a series of consequences to the regional and global economy. Take a look at these latest developments.
Pelosi's trip is creating a fresh pressure point for global investors already dealing with the prospects of a U.S. recession, worldwide rate hikes, and surging inflation. Global financial markets whipsawed as risk sentiment remained fragile. Meanwhile, U.S. and European equities followed Asian indexes down as investors weighed the market implications of the trip. Amid escalating tensions in the Taiwan Straits, increased defense spending, and deepening worries about a global economic slowdown, investors are driving headlong into U.S. bonds. Investors are concerned the move only worsens already tense relations between the world's two largest economies.
How could investors and economies weather the storm on top of the already tremendous economic challenges as a result of the pandemic? We got these up-to-date analyses from economists. For more on the latest events and its impact on the economy, in Shanghai, we have Wang Dan, chief economist from Hang Seng Bank, China. In Hong Kong, Edward Xie, chairman and CEO of Gaofeng Advisory Company. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. What do you make of the immediate effect on the financial markets following the disturbing news of the House Speaker visiting Taiwan? Ms. Wang.
The global market has been spooked by this unexpected event because recently there has been several events already causing a lot of turbulence in the financial market. The global investors have been rushing their capital back to the safe assets, including the U.S. capital market and the Japanese market. And as a result of this event, we would expect more volatility in the global financial market, especially the stock market. And that means the tech company stocks will take even bigger hit than in the previous month.
And does that do anybody good? Sorry for my direct and yet ignorant question, but I really wondered.
The biggest party that will benefit from this event will be the financial industry, because actually the financial services industry would benefit from volatilities. The hedge funds, the different type of stock exchange centers, and also people trying to speculate on the different directions of the emerging markets and developed markets. And a lot of the retail investors will lose in this process, but the experienced financial investors can gain big time from this.
Turbulences create some wealth for some people. Mr. Xie, your take.
Yeah, certainly this event, the visit by Ms. Pelosi to Taiwan, have created a lot of concerns and uncertainties in the financial market. And I think, as we know, financial investors are looking for stability and certainty. But this case actually have stirred up a lot of problems, and people are not quite sure whether it's going to lead to any, for example, military conflict or any additional sanctions or whatever. So this kind of uncertainty have really created a lot of problem with the financial market, and I think that's what we're seeing.
Now, Ms. Wang, we understand that the region Asia Pacific is extremely important for the global supply chain and global value chain. For immediate effect, what would the latest events mean for the sustainability and stability of these chains?
Well, it would immediately increase the sense of urgency to develop indigenous technology for every country along the electronic supply chain, especially for large economy like China. Previously, we have already seen a lot of emphasis on developing lots of the cutting-edge technologies on its own instead of relying on the imported technology. And now with what's going on in Taiwan and potential more restrictions from the U.S. on tech imports, and that means China will have to step up its effort in R&D in the related tech industries.
Mr. Xie, your take also on the same question, please.
Right. China has for a long time been relying on the external circulation on its trade with the rest of the world, and it continues to rely on that a lot. At the same time, China recognizes that relying on the external circulation by itself is probably not going to be sufficient and wouldn't give China enough economic security, and therefore it began to emphasize the internal circulation. I think this case that we're now seeing underscore the importance or the foresight of that kind of strategic economic strategy. So yeah, for supply chain is going to is adding on an additional dimension of uncertainty, and I think for at least for a little while, is going to create a lot of concerns by people. But internally, I think China is going to focus a lot on its own economic development.
Mr. Xie, many expect China and the United States could, at least to a certain extent, be able to hold their hands in front of the fact that the world is suffering from economic challenges, tremendous one, and possibly some suggest even we are heading into another round of global recession. Now, Mr. Xie, what do you see the latest events regarding the House Speaker's visit to Taiwan likely to dampen the possibility in that direction? What would that mean for economies, whether it's developed or developing ones?
Yeah, certainly being the two largest economic powers in the world, China and the U.S. have actually a lot of responsibility to work together, to collaborate, to ensure that the rest of the world will achieve a certain kind of economic benefits. Unfortunately, this current event by the House Speaker visiting Taiwan is putting a damper on that kind of progress. I think before that, there has been some discussions between China and U.S. about certain areas of collaboration, while there are many areas of conflict. But progress was being made in some aspects. But I think this case have dampened a lot of that kind of progress for quite a while.
Now, the biggest two economies in the world in quite intense geopolitical struggle. Ms. Wang, what does it mean for investors?
For global investors, they're facing a big trade-off now. It's either relying on the highly efficient supply chain that's centering around China, or trying to create alternative supply chains that's more fitting to the U.S. benefit. But now when we look at the global economy, this year the momentum is still good. Even with this unexpected event, it's unlikely to alter its course, because the post-COVID recovery is still speeding up. If we look at Asia, Latin America, most of the countries do have a good momentum. But next year, major stress will start to emerge, given that a lot of the central banks have already started to do the rate hikes, and this small event might turn out to be another military build-up of a lot of countries. That, in a way, is a stimulus to the domestic economy by any measures. But still, the higher potential of having some regional conflict will dampen the global investor sentiment of doing long-term investments.
One of the things is people ask about the question, as the largest economy in the world, the United States, for example, we see a lot of changes in the Fed's latest actions toward the interest rates. And also, we also see different reactions in the U.S. Economic policy. But one thing is for sure, people see the division of governance within this administration among different branches of government and among different political individuals, as reflected by the latest event. So how do you see, Ms. Wang, the reflection of that fact once again in front of the world? What does that mean for people's confidence about the biggest economies and the confidence about the global recovery?
I'd say people still have confidence in the power of the U.S. real economy and the power of dollar. It's still the dominating currency for global transactions and debt issuance. But when you look at how the domestic policies have been panning out, it just seems that the U.S. has lost its ability to containing one voice. When you have different departments trying to pursue different purposes out of their own benefit, that means the outsiders would often find it confusing. It is definitely detrimental to the foreign investments into the U.S., but also it will create this uncertain environment that the global investors will become more conservative.
Mr. Xie, we also see the investors and the business communities in China and the United States investing in each other's economy a lot and also investing globally for mutual benefits, win-win in that regard. For those business communities who are still relying on each other and looking at each other as the biggest market and biggest supply chain possibilities, how are they going to handle the latest chaos, political chaos, geopolitical chaos, which is, of course, they are not responsible for?
Both sides are genuinely, interested in continuing to invest on the other side, meaning Chinese businessmen are still genuinely interested in looking at the U.S. market and vice versa, because they feel that there's money to be made and there's value to be created because these are major economic markets. However, they are all very concerned, and at times, actually, many of them are at awe with the decisions that politicians are making, especially those in the U.S. As Ms. Wang was talking about, people are very concerned about how fragmented the governance model in the U.S. is now, and there's so many different parties. Each party has its own specific interest and purpose, and they don't seem to coordinate very well, even with respect to probably the most important foreign policy. Whereas on the China side, I think China is much more coordinated and has a much more coherent view of the U.S.-China relationship as well as China's relationship with the rest of the world. But nonetheless, China cannot do everything by itself. It needs collaboration and working together with many other nations, in particular the U.S.
Edward Xie, Dan Wang, thank you so much for your insights on the latest development in the financial and international economic realms. I'm looking forward to future discussion with you about the Chinese economy later this week. Thank you.